Welcome to another Unwinding with Fiber and Fabric. It's been about 3 weeks since I posted my last video, and I have definitely been on the busy side. I've attended a class reunion. I have finished the quilting and binding on 2 quilts, and I have another quilt, or in this case a wall hanging, under construction. So today I wanted to come and do a quick video, basically a show and tell, talking about the 3 quilts that that I have finished. The first one is the big, gigantic green quilt that I finished piecing together and basted last year. Last year in, I guess, the spring of 2021. And I wrapped up the quilting and got all the binding ready. This is the largest quilt I've ever done. It finishes at 116 inches by 116 inches square, and it's big and it's wonderful. It has a lot more quilting than I've done on my large quilts in the past, so I'm very pleased with it. One of the things that I've learned over the years is that if you skimp on the quilting, the quilt doesn't necessarily hold up to as much wear and tear. And this is definitely a quilt that's going on our bed. It's already on our bed, and it is meant to be snuggled with. It is meant to it's meant to be kind of a bedspread as much as a quilt as well. So it hangs over the side of my bed so that on either side of the queen size bed that it sits on, it's only it only clears the floor about 2 to 3 inches on either side of the bed. So it is certainly oversized. It's working perfectly. It has just enough stiffness to make it lay really pretty, or lie really pretty. Okay, now I'm confused. The grammar is not going to probably be my best strong suit today. It's we're as most of the world, from what I'm hearing, a lot of Europe is experiencing a heat wave. We're experiencing a heat wave, and it's taking its toll. Air conditioning can only do so much when you have high humidity and high heat. And I'm getting a visitor. So this is Callie, or as my husband refers to her, Kitty Putty, because when you get her in your lap and she wants to be loved, she turns into Putty, very much like Silly Putty. Right now she thinks that she needs some sort of attention of the food variety. So hopefully by picking her up, she will leave me alone. So the quilt that we have on our bed, it's serving the purpose. It's not an extremely thick or heavy weight quilt, but because of its size and the fact that it drapes over the side of the bed so much, it feels a little bit like a weighted quilt. So it's very comfortable, but it's also not so heavily stitched that you can't snuggle up in it and really enjoy a good snuggle. So I'm so pleased, and I'm so glad to have it finished. It makes a wonderful summertime quilt, especially with now I have cat hair on my face. It makes a wonderful summertime quilt, especially with the heat that we're having at the moment. So when I got that quilt ready to sandwich together and start the quilting a year ago, I'd been working on another quilt that I pieced together during it was a Facebook group, and I'll put the information in the description with the information for it. But it was a Facebook group that was doing kind of a mystery, not a true mystery quilt, because we got to see what all the blocks were before we started. But it was, every week we got another block pattern. So for those of us that had a lot of experience making and designing quilts, it was very easy, very simple sampler quilt. And so for many of us, we were able to take a look at the blocks that were shown in the sample quilt and get a head start on it. So I made the top during that group project, and I actually made a second one at the time, pieced together two of them. But I put away the tops because I knew we were getting close to moving. I put away the tops, and it was only after having moved here a couple years ago, my husband and I had a massive day of basting quilts. I think there might be a video that shows some of that back in the early video days. But so I had that quilt mostly quilted. In fact, it was really funny when I pulled it out of the basket to finish it after finishing the green quilt. I couldn't, it was basically binding in like one, half of a block. Or actually, I was done with the blocks. It was a small section of border that was left to quilt. So I was really surprised. I had gotten very close to having that one finished, but I wanted to work on the big green quilt. I wanted to get it done. I needed something for the summer months. The tied quilt that I'd been using for a few years before that had become very threadbare. And so I really wanted to get the green quilt done. So I set aside this sampler quilt, and so it was just a little bit of time. In fact, it would have been very easy for me to finish it up very quickly, have it done. Could have done this video a couple weeks ago. But as I said, I had a class reunion, and I kept having this idea for a wall hanging for my bedroom. My husband had this really interesting art piece of wall. It's not a wall hanging. It's basically a waterfall of multicolored threads that kind of give a rainbow effect. And I've always liked it. I've always been drawn to it. And I have it hanging in the corner of our bedroom near our bed, the head of our bed. And I kept thinking what we needed over the on the wall above our bed was something really colorful, something very different. It needed to, I think, kind of give the same feeling of that rainbow. So out came the dies, and if I had thought ahead enough, if I'd really planned this out, I would have made a die order to get some much more intense primary colors. But as it was, I used the colors that I had, I used the dies that I had, and I created this whole cloth quilt top that I am currently quilting. So I'm really pleased with it. It is a little bit less intense of color than what I'd first hoped for, but my bedroom walls are painted a soft sage color. So this, the big green quilt, the soft sage walls, I think this whole cloth quilt will look good on the wall. Be calm, and maybe calmer than it would be if it was more intense in color. So that's what I've been up to. And on that whole cloth quilt, my intention, and I think I have a close-up photo that I can share, my intention is to simply quilt around the bold shapes, not worrying about real pattern or structure, making sure that the actual quilt is sandwiched and quilted well, but not worrying about as much technical side of how far apart are my stitches, how far apart, I should say, is the stitching. So it's just going to be random. It's going to be fun. It's a very enjoyable piece to quilt on at the moment. It's not so big that it makes me feel very hot and sweaty under a quilt. Summertime hand quilting, even with air conditioning, I think I'd rather be at the spinning wheel. And speaking of the spinning wheel, Tour de Fleece is now just only a couple weeks away. I am trying to come up with some wonderful ideas, both to challenge me for the tour and some wonderful ideas for content to be able to share some videos during that time. So I'm looking forward to that. I think my next video will actually be a Tour de Fleece video, because we are getting that close. But there's one last thing I wanted to share. So with my class reunion, one of the things I've been thinking about it, because it was a big year for the class reunion. And one of the things that a year ago I was thinking about is, you know, what would I wear to the reunion? What am I going to be comfortable in? And I went on to Dharma Trading, where I get my dyes and some of my blanks, and I found this wonderful poncho type throw. Very simple. It's just basically a big rectangle with fringe on the bottom that is slit, of course, to have the opening to go over your shoulders. But this is a silk and rayon velvet, cut velvet. And it's really interesting because clearly the silk is not the part that's the cut. So the rayon wouldn't take the acid dyes as much. They did take on kind of a beautiful buttery yellow color. But didn't that just turn out beautifully? And it's light, it's lightweight, and I found this to be truly a wonderful piece for the reunion, because while I'm talking about the heat, so the heat and the humidity bothers me a great deal, but air conditioning makes my skin sometimes hurt. So having something like this really made the difference. Let me turn it around. Oh, there we go. Show the back of it. It really made the difference. It worked out really well. But I wanted to tell you this story about this. So this has been sitting in a bin for a year. It has languished while I've done other tie-dyeing and other clothing dyeing projects. So it's kind of languished, and it was waiting. And one of the things that caused me to keep putting it off was I couldn't figure out what color I wanted it to be. I kept thinking I wanted it to be green. And oh my goodness, if I'd realized how wonderful this was, I would have bought more than one of them, because this style is not available at this time on the Dharma Trading website. And I really loved it. When it came time to decide the color, I kept leaning green. But there was a part of me that I've always liked a yellow. I don't tend to buy yellow clothing, but the yellow I thought would really look good with a lot of the stuff that I have. So I kind of was leaning towards yellow, but I thought green would be much more cool and calming and maybe not as risky. Then I also thought it would be great to do it in tie-dye, because I mean, who wouldn't want a tie-dyed wrap? But in talking to my daughter about the color choice, with her support, I decided to go with the yellow. She pointed out to me, well, if you don't like the yellow after you dye it, you can always over dye it green. Yes. So I dyed it yellow, and I'm really, really pleased. I'm really glad that I did this. It is it's my new favorite thing. So I wanted to share. When I bought this, I really felt a little bit of a pinch or a cringe over how much I was spending on this compared to the other stuff that it was much more practical and more utilitarian. I definitely have sticker shock now because the prices have gone up so much with all of the delay in shipping and changes in supply, and not being able to meet a lot of the demand. The prices have gone up, and rightfully so. These last 2 years have not been easy for a lot of companies that we depend on to get us the stuff we need, whether it's for our business or for our personal use. And so I do wish, though, that I had just had the foresight to splurge, because having a few of these in my closet would have been a splurge. But I guess what I wanted to share with this, in addition to how wonderful and soft and beautiful it is that it is really nice. When I bought this, I knew that we were, it's been an emotional time for a lot of people. The disruption that a pandemic can bring, it is something that it can make it a little difficult for all of us. And so I think worldwide we've been feeling a little bit more emotional than we might have felt a few years ago. But when I bought this, what I didn't understand is that by the time I actually did put the dye on it, by the time I actually did use it, that I would have gone through something that challenged me emotionally more than even the abnormality of the pandemic, and of my daughter having been evacuated from the job that she'd had, and just the chaos. And so I hadn't anticipated. I don't think any of us can ever truly anticipate when we're going to go through a major challenge in our life. And for me, these last really 6 months have been a major challenge, and I've been so proud of myself in keeping these videos going, keeping myself going, holding a piece of joy in my life every day. And I've been proud of that, but I didn't anticipate how much I would really benefit from having splurged a year ago for something that I needed right now. And I will share a picture of me wearing this when I was at my reunion. It shows the joy that I was experiencing on that day. It shows the joy that I was experiencing knowing I had something that was a little splurge, that made me feel comfortable, that made me, it was like having a hug. And so I just wanted to share that, because I know a number of the people who follow my vlog understand what I'm talking about. Oftentimes, we do get really good at getting through and finding little bits of joy. And we become so good at it that oftentimes the people around us don't recognize that we may be struggling a little bit more than usual. And sometimes the way we get that little extra attention, that little extra hug that we need, is because we take the time to make something for ourselves. We treat ourselves. I know that so many of the makers and creators out there love making things for others, whether it's to make things for others to sell or to make things for others as gifts. We like making things for others. It gives us joy to create something that then will put a smile on someone else's face. And we sometimes forget to put a smile on our own face. So that's my thought with this week's video. I hope to see you all soon, and I hope that you will tune in for my Tour de Fleece videos, which, as I said, are coming up. July 1st is the beginning of the Tour de France, so July 1st is the beginning of the Tour de Fleece. I don't know if I'm going to be doing daily videos, or if I'm going to do weekly videos, or I'm just going to do videos whenever it feels right. But I am going to be doing a bunch of videos in the month of July with spinning. I have, as I said earlier, some wonderful ideas as to how I'm going to bring some extra content to challenge myself and to have fun. So I hope to see you in July for Tour de France. I hope, and not Tour de France. I will not be getting on a bicycle. I am definitely in the spectator sport when it comes to that. But I hope to see you in July for Tour de Fleece. I hope to see you join me as I return to my wheel and start making some fabulous creations with yarn. Until then, I wish you joy and lots of smiles. We'll see you soon.